Okay. Oh, the echo's back. Goody, goody, goody. All right. So I don't know if you're hearing that or not. I don't know where that's coming from. It's kind of weird. So we'll see how interactive this whole thing is, and if it is quite interactive, then I'm gonna mute that. Nope, that didn't help. Um, Depending on how interactive it is, I'm just gonna turn my headset down because that's really distracting me. It'll depend how long we do this because I'm kind of tired. I'd like to go to bed. I'm going to do the podcast tomorrow. But if you got any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts about the game, drop it in there. Green Bay Packers lost this one. Not super concerned about wins and losses, although you'd like to see them win one. I can still hear it. I got to turn the headset all the way off. That's going to make me insane. At the very least, somebody comment if you can hear the echo because it's super annoying. Oh, I wonder if maybe I just don't have one of these things muted. Nope, that's not it. Anyways, while I'm waiting for this just raucous crowd to start jumping in with the comments and whatnot, 23-14, Green Bay Packers lost once again. We basically saw all Kurt Benkert, who played fairly well, massively overhyped, but oh, there we go. No echo, sounds good. All right, sweet. I guess it's just on my end. I'll figure it out. I thought Kirk did a good job. I thought he did better than Justin Fields, but I think it was a little overhyped, a tad. I saw one of the blue check marks talking about he's better than we've ever seen Jordan Love play. Just all kinds of weird stuff. 18 of 25, 151 yards, one touchdown, one interception. I think he had like an 83 passer rating. So it was okay. I mean, it was certainly better than I think the first outing. He had a couple good throws, couple horrific throws. As far as number 3 quarterbacks go, it was fine. I don't think he was as good as we've seen like Taysom Hill, but I like Kurt Benkert. I just don't like that some people really just want him to be really good. I also don't like that there's a certain contingent of people, and I know they're doing this. They want to pump up Kurt. I know because hey, hi Katie. I'm distracted. I can't talk, and my brain doesn't work that way. There's certain people, and I know because they've done this directly. They send me messages where they love to say Kurt's better than Jordan Love. He's better than Jordan Love's ever been. So you guys are going to drive me out of my mind, man. Kurt did fine. I don't know if he's better than Jordan Love because we've seen Jordan Love throw like 8 passes. Jake Dolegala, one pass, one interception. Not the best outing in the world. Why don't we switch over here before we just start running through all the different position groups? What do we got? Michael says, not a good showing from the 2s and 3s today. Nearly pathetic, actually. Well, let's pause there because it was pretty much started with the 2s, and I thought they looked fantastic. After that, which is what we saw last week as well, once the sort of third string, I guess you would say, defense, although there's still some 2s and some of these position groups, there's only so many guys, so it's kind of the same guys all throughout. But I think the linebackers in particular, as much as I like, Ty Summers and Kamal Martin and those guys, there's a noticeable drop-off, especially in the run game as the game goes on when the linebackers switch out and maybe some of the defensive linemen. And then certainly the corners, some of the coverage just was completely blown. And I don't even think it's necessarily, it may be a talent thing, but you see just the complete lack of communication and guys don't know where they're going and all that kind of stuff. Which again kind of goes back to why the Packers really like, and probably most teams like guys that know what they're doing. Whereas we want to like push the guys out there that are early round picks, or they're really talented, or they're really fast, or they jump really high. But if you don't know what you're doing, you make this entire team look ridiculous, and we get kind of embarrassed. And there was a decent amount of that. But again, these are the guys that are not going to be starting. These are the guys that are not even going to be second team. We're trying to find these guys and figure out which of these guys is going to be the backup's backup. He says, I also have not seen Lambeau with only 50,000 in attendance for a preseason game in my life. I am 50. I didn't know that's all that was there. Probably a COVID thing. I don't know. Katie says, I want to know after today how many quarterbacks you keep and how many wide receivers. I'm thinking 3 and 7. Yeah, I haven't done a 53. I don't know why I'm dragging my feet on it. I think I just know how much work it is, and I don't feel like it. But it's one of those things, too, and I got this up right now. Why don't we look at it just for a brief second? Because you always want to say, oh, yeah, we got to keep Rodgers, Love, and Benkert, right? For sure. And then you look at the wide receivers, and it's like, oh, yeah, we got to keep Adams, Marquez, Lazard, Cobb, Funchess, Amari. And then, I like Malik and Begelton and Equinemius and so you keep doing that. But the point is, I was looking at running backs, and I don't think everybody has this opinion. I don't know how you get rid of any of these guys. Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon are locks. Kylan Hill has locked up the third job, and he looks really good. I like Patrick Taylor a ton. I really like Patrick Taylor. I think he's one of the better looking runners. I know he had a fumble today, and that's not good, and that's really going to hurt him, especially in the position he's in, and he's probably not going to make it. He's going to either practice squad or just outright get cut. But he looks so decisive and so powerful, and I really, really like Patrick Taylor. And you know what I think about Dexter. And not only that, him on special teams today was incredible. So not only do I think he's a relatively good runner, and he has a ton of good speed, and we've seen some good stuff from him, he is making a strong case for himself as one of our better returners at this point. I don't know how you get rid of any of those five. You're going to have to. I'm thinking Patrick Taylor might be low man on the totem pole just because he's not quite as refined. Again, he did have the fumble, and he offers, as far as I know, nothing on special teams. But it could be Dexter. I don't know. But the point is, it's hard to say exactly without going through, because that's when you have to make the tough cuts, because you go through and you say, well, I want to keep all these guys, and you end up with 62 guys, and then you got to start doing the hard stuff and working your way back. So I don't know exactly where I would make those cuts, but at the very least, we've got 6 wide receivers, right? Adams, MVS, Cobb, Lazard, Funchess, Amari Rodgers. That's 6. Equinemius, Malik, Chris Blair, Reggie Begelton, Juwan Winfrey, and Damon Hazelton. Don't have to keep any of those guys. And then Rodgers, as far as quarterback, it's just, you always want the 3, but it just, can you afford to keep the third guy? I don't know. It doesn't usually matter that much. If you're down to your third guy, you're very, very in trouble. Delicious. What else we got going on here? Michael says, I am not going to sugarcoat it. That's fine. You don't have to sugarcoat anything. 2 and 7. Oh, he's answering Katie. You guys are having a conversation on the side. I'm sorry for butting in. Katie says, I think we need to keep Benkert because he's not going to make it through waivers. Yeah, you're probably right about that. But it's kind of the same with a lot of these guys. I mean, Taysom Hill, we went through that. Again, I really think Taysom was phenomenal. I know it's kind of like a running joke, and everybody's, oh, that's so stupid. Even Packer fans, I don't know why Packer fans, a lot of them did not like him. He was really, really talented, and not just fast. He had an incredible arm and had some beautiful throws, basically just dominated whenever he was on the field. And they made the tough choice, and they cut him, and he got picked up, and now he's in a pretty good position. So I don't know. You're probably right, but I don't know. I think we'll survive. I mean, what's the long-term plan with him anyways? I don't know. How many of the 32 inactives today were because of injury? How long will Hazelton stay on this? Hazleton, I can't imagine. The next round of cuts, I think he's going to be gone. How many of the 32 were inactive because of injury? I don't know. I don't have the list in front of me, so I don't want to spend time kind of pulling stuff up. Michael's back. He says, I don't want Kurt Benkert on the roster. Why? Yes, you can hide him on the practice squad. Why waste a roster spot on him? Kind of like what I was saying. I mean, I don't mind having him, but what purpose does he serve? Again, if we get to that point, I mean, if Rodgers goes down, we're already in trouble. Flat out. And then if Jordan Love goes down, we're going to pull somebody up from the practice squad, and it's just a nightmare at that point. And Kurt had a couple nice balls, but you put him out there against the number 1 squad, you put him out there against the Rams, he's going to be annihilated. And I like Kurt, but, no. True Brew Steve. Watching all the Jets injuries pile up makes me thankful our coaching staff keeps us. Yeah, man, they got brutalized. I kind of felt sorry for them. I don't think they were going to be a very good football team to begin with, but I like the direction they're going. I think the quarterback is looking actually quite promising despite the high level of hate that they're getting. We'll see what happens, but fantastic coaching staff. I think they're going to bring a reputable culture there that the Jets just haven't had in a long time. And, it's going to take some time to build, but you hate for them to just be pathetic. Because even though you look at it and say, well, they're going to have a great draft pick and they'll be able to continue building, there's got to be some buy-in. And if you bring all these guys in and they're a 2-win team again, that's gonna kind of hurt. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but Packers again doing a great job as far as health is concerned. Knock on wood, stuff happens. It's gonna happen to us again, but they make caution a high priority, and that's incredibly important. Ian, nice bounce back for the offensive line. Yeah, so I'll pause there on your comment. The offensive line did a fantastic job. Now, again, you had guys like Lucas Patrick get subbed in. So, for example, I know Royce, for some reason, this coffee's like, it's got my heart rate up. I can't breathe. If I pass out, somebody call the police. No, I'm just kidding. I'll probably be fine. Royce Newman was fantastic. The guys that they started with this time around did a great job. But you bring Lucas Patrick back in, it starts to fall apart again. Some of the guys that got brought back in that were considered to be like starters or at least second string, again, you started to see it devolve again, especially Lucas Patrick just had a terrible run. I'm trying to remember who it was. I don't know if I exactly identified who the person was. I think Newman was there. He was a possible guy, but when Benkert ended up tripping twice, and then he also had a couple bad snaps. So there was some stuff. I don't think it was Josh Myers, but he might have been in there. Some of it was a little bit ugly, but massively better outing than what we saw last week. So whatever they did to shake things up, we're probably going to keep that going forward. He continues on, though. Yash held his own. Will they really start 2 rookie offensive linemen? Newman didn't look at out place. I'm guessing you're saying out of place. Dillon's a tank. Heflin looking like Lancaster 2 years ago. So Dillon looked fantastic. Really excited to see that. And again, if you listen to the podcast, I've been kind of nervous because you got all these other guys, the running backs that look real good. A.J. Dillon just had that one series or just like a couple carries in that last preseason game, and he got like 0 yards. So it's like you kind of want him to get something going. And then after this performance, I mean, he just blew through everybody. He looked incredible, and it was like any doubts that I had that he was going to be able to pick up where he left off last year were just sort of eviscerated. The guy looks fantastic, and even if he's not a perfect runner, he turns 4 yards into 7 yards easily, if not 10 yards. So A.J. Dillon's looking fantastic. I'm losing my comments here. What else did you say? Will they really start 2 rookie off? I mean, you're going to start who's on top. It is kind of a question mark. They need to be very, very sure. For example, if what's his name, Royce Newman, really is the guy, you really need to be sure, because again, some of it comes down to Aaron Rodgers needs to feel comfortable. Not just is this guy going to be able to push this guy away from me, but when I make a call or when Josh Myers makes a call at the line, you got to know what he's talking about, right? You got to understand this stuff, and that's a huge part of it. And if Royce is kind of scratching his head for a second, that's not going to go very well. But, I mean, if he's the guy, he's the guy. So, yeah. And then Heflin. Yeah, I still don't know where this guy came from. Jack Heflin is just tearing it up. I mean, from day one, he was second team. I mean, I'm looking at the depth chart right now. He's the backup to Kingsley Keke. He's just leapfrogging everybody. And he's going out in preseason just making plays every single week. I think he just looks incredible. I still cannot wrap my head around where this guy came from, but it's just kind of like, oh, yeah, that's Heflin. He's one of our better defensive tackles. Like, oh, okay, great. Nice to meet you, sir. Katie says, I think only 3 running backs, Hill and other 2 to practice squad. Yeah, I mean, that's what's going to end up happening. I just think it's a really tough cut. We'll see how it goes. Dexter, I don't know if Dexter even can. I don't remember what the rules are on that, how many years you can be active or whatever the case may be, but he's getting to the point where it's his contract's, he's running up against his contract here. I think this is his last year on this contract, his rookie deal. I don't know. Taylor will be on the practice squad, but he's a heck of a stash, says Speaks McGee. Yeah. I'm trying to... So I keep getting the Taylors mixed up because I think we have 2 Taylors on the team. Yeah, I really like Taylor. I just think he's in a tough spot with Kylan Hill and Dexter Williams. But Patrick Taylor, again, when he gets the ball, I don't know how else to say it. He's just so decisive. He's just north and south, and he's got a massive punch. And I think he's really good at reading things, too. Some of these guys, Now, even A.J. Dillon, there are so many times I look and it's like, oh, there's a big hole, and it's like, nah, you ran into the defenders though. You didn't go to the hole. Patrick Taylor, I think, has great vision. He's got a good burst, and he's got a lot of power. Um, I'm sure there is some reason why he's not moving up. I'm sure again it's probably a mental part of it, and as I said, you put the ball on the ground, that's really going to hurt you. And that one kind of hurt me because he didn't get a lot of opportunities, and he finally goes out there, and it wasn't. I'm not going to say it wasn't his fault, but it kind of wasn't. I mean, when you're going down, you can hold that ball as hard as you want. When that helmet, the crown of the helmet, just pops it right into the ball, it's just one of those things, man. So I don't know. I don't think he's going to make it, but I think he deserves it. I think he's a very, very good football player, and I don't think he's a starting running back, but he's a heck of a Jamal Williams type. I think he would make a great number 2, change of pace kind of back. Michael says, cut Lucas Patrick. If I have to explain why you haven't been paying attention. Yeah, no, you don't. We get it. Danny says, currently at the Vikings preseason game, they had Thielen in, and he limped off the field. Oh, dang. Yeah, I'm not watching. I don't think I can even see that right now. I was watching the Lions game before. Yeah, see, that's exactly it. And, as fans, we're kind of like, oh, man, I really want to see so-and-so. But then you see Thielen get hurt, and it's like, why is he playing? What is Thielen gaining from this? He's such a pivotal part of what your team does. I'm going to sit up here. He's such a pivotal part of your team. Who cares? What's he not going to make the team? Does he need the reps? He doesn't need the reps. He's 32 years old? He doesn't need it. So, hopefully he's okay. I don't want him to be injured. There's no reason for that. I mean, the Packers are a little extreme with the guys that they're holding out, but I'm fine with it. Anybody that if they get hurt, it's devastating to the season, and you're going to be really upset they were ever on the field, shouldn't be on the field. And that's like the 32 guys that got held out. I mean, you go down the line. Bakhtiari can't play, but if he could, he wouldn't be out there. Elton Jenkins isn't out there. Billy Turner isn't out there. You go that far into it. It's just anybody that has a critical part, no, you're not playing. And I think that makes perfect sense. And again, this is why. Adam Thielen gets hurt. It's just stupid. He shouldn't be playing. And you got, Tom Brady and Pat Mahomes and these guys, I understand it's just a couple passes, but it's just stupid. See-through cups. I love see-through cups. How many teams keep 3 quarterbacks? I don't know. I haven't done the work on it, but I know the Packers have done it in the past. It's probably not super common, but it does happen. Is a team cutting their current back up to sign Kurt as a number 2? I don't know. I don't know what the talent pool is for backup quarterbacks. I mean, I know starting quarterbacks, it's a grind trying to find anybody that's a starter. So I would assume that if I just had to throw a random number out there, I would say half the league right now is looking at their backups going, this guy's useless. So if you look at what Kurt did, and again, I think it was massively overblown how great of a job he did. I thought he did fine. But still, he did enough to where I think certain teams would look at him and go, let's give him a shot, because the guy we got is doing nothing. So I think there's at least a team that if we cut him and hope that he clears waivers, he's not going to clear waivers. That would be my assumption. I like him, and I hope he makes a 53. Just don't think it's a requirement. I don't either. I agree. J.K. Scott is so inconsistent. How does he stay on the roster? It's the highs, and also because he was drafted. I mean, our long snapper is also terrible, but he was drafted. J.K. Scott is a great punter, but you're right. The biggest issue is inconsistency. I mean, he does stuff that nobody can do. He's got a leg like just about nobody else. I mean, he can put so much behind it, but yeah, it is a big problem. Also, similar to quarterback, there's not a lot of great punters most of the time, and we've had experience with this with Jake Frost and a bunch of other guys. It's like, get this bum out of here, and we go get somebody else, and it's even worse. Although I don't think it's been worse than Jake Frost, but even special teams coaches, right? This coach is garbage. Let's bring somebody else in, and then we go get what's his name, Menenga, and it got worse. Somehow it got worse, and then we get rid of Menenga, and we get a new guy in, and I'm not going to say it's worse, but it's not better. Look at the Bears with kickers. Look at the Vikings with kickers. It's the same kind of thing. This guy's trash. Get him out of my face. You bring somebody else in, and it gets worse. There's not a lot of guys that are very, very good punters. Very few. Most teams, I don't think, have very good, consistently good punters. And at least with J.K. Scott, what you get is a guy with a high upside. Let's say 50% of the time, it's just a heck of a punt. It's right inside the 10. It's a 50-yard punt with a massive amount of hang time. It's just a great punt. And then 50% of the time, it's either subpar or just what the heck was that? So I think, again, because he was drafted and because of his upside, they're not just going to get rid of him. If there was somewhere easy to go, they would, but I don't think there is. And again, if you look at, for example, PFF, I think he was like the second or third highest graded punter last year, which isn't necessarily to disagree with what you're saying because he is inconsistent. He has a lot of bad punts, but it just goes to show how bad the other punters in the league are. Danny says, Thielen is why you don't play starters. I agree. And if anybody can give me an update on that, because I'm not watching any games right now, if they say anything, I doubt they're going to know, but just let me know. In general, with any of the football games that are going on. Speaks McGee says, different year, same special teams. Yeah, it's looking that way, man. I'm not feeling optimistic about it. I don't think the returners are doing a very good job. I don't think the coverage. Some of them. Some of the guys, and you know, it's a unit, so as a unit, it doesn't look good. And we still get Mason. Mason does good as far as being a kicker. Again, JK is 50-50. The punt coverage and the punt return units are just terrible. The blocking and the tackling and whatnot. There's a couple guys that made some plays. I didn't catch who was it the one time that the announcers are talking about. I can't remember his name, but I know the first kickoff, Isaiah McDuffie, the guy that we brought in, did a really good job. He busted through a couple of guys. I don't think he secured the tackle, but he took on a couple of guys and then tripped the guy up, and somebody came in and cleaned it up. But fantastic job by him. So there's some guys that are standing out. But yeah, I agree. I don't expect us to have a good unit. I don't think we really have a good returner. I do think Dexter had a great day. I think he had 2 returns, and both of them were pretty solid. I'll get some more numbers. By the way, anybody that's in here right now that is not listening to the podcast, Packernet Podcast, check it out tomorrow. We're going to go through some of the more detailed statistics. Hopefully PFF will have some of that more in-depth stuff tomorrow to look at, and special teams is something I want to check out because you're right, it's looking terrible, and you can't even blame it on, with all this other stuff. It's like, oh, we lost. That's terrible. It's like, dude, it's the backups, and it's mostly against their starters. Who cares? The backups are your starting special teams, though. So, I mean, these guys are trying to make the roster by proving they should be the starting special teams unit. So, I mean, there's not a lot of guys that we're holding out right now that we're going to put on special teams. So, this is it. And they're getting lit up, and it's not good. And it's similar to J.K. Scott, where, once in a while they have a great coverage or whatever the case is, and you get excited about it. But if it's once a game where they have that return down to the 30-yard line, that's unacceptable. And it's just every year. And yeah, I'm like everybody else, I'm getting very tired of it. Michael says, OMG, you are going to stick up for Patrick. He's playing his... Who are you talking to? Michael, I don't know why you're so angry. Are you talking to me? What did I say about Patrick? I don't know what you're talking about. Why are you mad? Go to bed, dude. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. I agree with you. I agreed. We're on the same page. Lucas Patrick looks terrible. I get that. I'm excited about some of the younger guys because they're playing better. We're on the same page. I don't know why you're mad. I'm so confused. Not listening. Speaks McGee. Still a fan of Beggleton. Those returns were a good look. He did decent. I think that he had one good return that I remember. He just seems clunky to me. He's very tall, very lanky. He's a very upright runner. I think with a lot of these returners, and maybe I'm just making stuff up, but you want to be able to get down and power through some stuff and be shifty. I don't see him as like a real shifty returner. And again, if you're just running like straight up and doing this kind of stuff, it's not going to work. I mean, you might get a good return here and there if you got the block set up and you may take a couple good angles, but in general, I don't think he's going to do very much. I don't want to just put the guy down, but I don't think Beggleton has shown a ton, especially considering the depth at wide receiver. I think he's pretty far down the list. I mean, granted, once you get past Amari and Funchess and those guys, and Funchess isn't a lock, by the way. As far as talent, he's clearly in the top 6. If they decide that they don't need him, they may try to trade him, and they could probably get some value for him, and that'll allow you to open up another spot. And then he's got a shot because you got EQ, who hasn't shown anything. And I think it's really just a toss-up between Winfrey, Beggleton, and Malik Taylor are the only three that have really shown anything. Chris Blair and Hazleton, I don't think we've hardly heard their name at all. Fire Mo Drayton. Keep in mind this guy was an assistant to Menenga. Both clowns. Fire him now. The problem with that, although I agree it was an odd thing to do, is that you're starting over. And I don't think it's so easy as to just fire a guy. I guess why not? I mean, if you're going to be horrific, you can give it a shot. I think maybe it was a bad decision. We got to at least give it a chance. But yeah, again, I'm not super optimistic about it. And I don't think they're going to fire Drayton because, again, there's been so much work, hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours that goes into installing what our special teams is going to look like and going to do. And we've been drilling that into these guys over and over and over and over and over. It's a little late to start that whole process over right now. So I don't think that's good. Michael says Hef is from Iowa. Thank you. 1265 says blaming Domofsky for planting that Kurt equals love is better than love seed. Yeah, that was Domofsky. I didn't want to name drop that freaking guy. So this is what killed me about that tweet, and you can go find it. He wanted to compliment, and this is why I'm not a fan of the guy at all. And I know he's kind of just joking around a little bit, but it still just annoyed me to no end. And I wasn't going to mention Domofsky, but since you brought it up, he wanted to compliment Kurt Benkert. And his way of doing that was to insult 3 people. He insulted 3 people in that tweet. So he can't just say something nice about Kurt Benkert. No, he's got to insult Jordan Love and say that he's doing better than Jordan Love's ever done. And then he goes on to insult 2 of his colleagues. And again, maybe it was a joke, but he's still being an arrogant jerk about it. He insults 2 of his colleagues saying, unlike, my other colleagues who get excited about these third-string guys or whatever, in other words, saying they're a bunch of idiots for cheering on these guys, this guy seems to actually have talent, right? Talking about like guys like Tim Boyle and Taysom Hill and all that, how some of these reporters get excited about him, but it's stupid. But he's saying, but this is different. So again, he insulted 3 people just to say Kurt Benkert looks good, and he doesn't even look that good. Silly to me. I don't know why Rob has to be the way that he is. Lance says, I was waiting for this one, and I don't know if this is directly a shot at me or not, but I'm surprised it took this long. Lance says, TJ Slayton got a sack. I knew he had pass rush skills. So I've been saying since forever, he's a 340-pound, 2-gapping nose tackle. If you're excited about him because of his athleticism and he's going to get a bunch of sacks, you're going to be sorely disappointed. That's not why he's here. He got a sack. So, of course, everyone's going to... I was waiting for a bunch of people to be like, oh, I thought he wasn't getting a sack, which I didn't say he wouldn't get any sacks, but we need to set realistic expectations. And again, he's not primarily going to be a pass rusher. And so expecting a lot of production, I'm thinking like if he has 4 sacks, that's a pretty good year. That's my thought. From a sack standpoint, what I really want him to do is help with the against the run. But yeah, I was super excited to see that. TJ's been looking real good, solid against the run, and then he added, and he does have that dynamic. And it's not impossible. There are guys like who's the guy? See, I can't do names. The Samoan guy, I think out in Tampa right now. You know who I'm talking about, but. Very athletic, very large guy who does pretty well as far as sacks go, but it's very rare. Speaks McGee says, watching Mahomes and Murray last night was driving me crazy. Mahomes had around 14 pass attempts. Kyler kept getting pressures and sacks. Interesting choices to play those guys. So I think it's just stupid. I think that's what you mean when you say interesting, but I'm just going to say it's pretty stupid. Lance says, what did you think about the O-line? Again, I thought some of the guys did fantastic early on. I think you had some guys like Lucas Patrick come in and just do terrible, but the bottom line is I think there wasn't a ton of pressure for the most part. Also worth noting that the Jets pass rush, especially after the injuries and whatnot, there isn't much there. But for the most part, they did a great job running the ball, so there were alleyways for them to run through. And I thought there was significantly less pressure, which again is why it would have been nice if Jordan Love had played, because this is what I wanted to see Jordan Love with. Because when we actually saw Jordan Love, there was no running game, and there was pressure in his face in about 2.5 seconds because the offensive line was so terrible. So we still have not gotten a chance to actually see him operate in a normal setting, a normal environment. And no, that is not normal. Don't tell me that's normal, because it's not. That's ridiculous. And then next week he's supposed to play, but that's against Buffalo. And I'm sure there are a lot of starters are going to be in there, and he's going to be under a ton of duress, and it's going to be a nightmare. But whatever, you take what you can get. Let's see. Paula, how you doing, pal? Paula says, this year's group of Packers rookies looks really good. Yeah, I forget who it was. What's her name on Twitter? Again, terrible with names, but she had mentioned that it was incredible how many rookies might get significant. Lance, thank you very much for the 99-cent super chat. I really appreciate that, sir. But let's go through it. You got Amari Rodgers, you got Josh Myers, you got Royce Newman, you got Kylan Hill, you got TJ Slayton, you got Eric Stokes. That's six. 6 guys out of our draft class. That doesn't include Shamar, who might get some time. Isaiah might possibly get shuffled in a little bit. Jack Heflin, who technically wasn't drafted, but is, I believe, an undrafted free agent that we got. So there's that. That's probably about it, but that's a lot. It really is. And again, you look at most draft classes, if you can get 2-3 guys, solid contributors, that's not bad. That's really not. I mean, if you draft 7 guys and 3 guys are starters, that's awesome. We're talking about possibly 6 and like high-end guys, right? Again, Amari Rodgers, granted, is going to be a lot of rotation, but that's not a minor thing. Royce Newman could be a starting offensive guard, certainly not a minor thing. He's playing every down. Josh Myers, same exact thing. Kylan Hill is a third-string guy, but the fact that he leapfrogged the other 2 guys that are there is not insignificant in any stretch. And then, down the line, Stokes, starting cornerback, TJ Slayton, going to see a ton of him. Jack Heflin, probably going to see a good amount of him because they rotate the defensive line a lot. Shamar, we'll see if he's going to be in there quite a bit. But there's still a question of how good they're going to be. But just the fact that you got these guys that are so far proving to be pretty quality players and just contributors in general is quite impressive. Tampa Vita Vea. Thank you, Scott. Thank you for not being dumb like I am. It's exactly who I'm thinking of. Vita Vea is a massive human being. He's got to be somewhere around 340. And another one of the guys that there have been a couple guys that I've really, really liked in the draft that have panned out, and Vita Vea was one of them. And I thought he was going to be a big miss because I think he had a pretty rough first year. And I was like, that sucks. I thought he was going to be really good. He is one of the best defensive linemen in football right now. Lance says, I was rooting for Runyon, but he only looked okay. Yeah, Runyon wasn't dominant last year, but he had a significant leg up. I mean, he's at least good enough to be a starter. He was a competent starter. He's got experience as a starter. He should be well ahead of everybody else, but Runyon just doesn't look very good. And again, you got guys there's a ton of competition. And again, a lot of these guys are behind the 8 ball, but they're just playing better. And at this point, John Runyon, whether or not he's played or not, if you can't hold up and other guys can, you lose your job. So it is what it is. I mean, we're not going to cut him, but I'm a little surprised that he's fallen off. Goose says, how did you feel about our inside linebackers and safeties? I thought the linebackers looked great again. Kind of the early on guys. Chris Barnes, I saw a lot of. I thought he looked really good. Oren Burks, I thought looked pretty good. Ty Summers, I saw in a couple different plays. Again, I'm not watching every single snap or every single down, but just in general, they look more competent. They look much more aggressive. And again, the defensive line in general it just fits. It just makes sense. When they're running outside zone, how everything kind of stretches out down the field. Everything is just evenly spaced. You got this guy in this gap, this guy in this gap, this guy in this gap, and then you got the linebacker just shooting in that final gap. It just works, and it makes it easier for the linebackers. I mean, it just looks so simple. Like, hey, there's your spot. Go run there. But I think it looks really good. Even on some of these like 3 or 4 yard runs, everybody just kind of takes their spot and everybody does their job. And, if you got there a little bit earlier, it would have been a shorter gain, but they got to their spot, they made a tackle. So I thought it looked good. Now, again, as things went down a little bit longer and as you got different rotation a little bit later on, some of the linebackers didn't hold up quite as well. And I don't know that it was the linebackers. Could have been the defensive line. Some of these guys are probably getting really tired because they've been out there the whole time, which is why later on in the game you see the run game start to open up. Could be a couple different things, but again, they're the ones out there making a lot of these plays, and it blows me away because I'm just not used to it. Seeing these guys fly around and make plays. Usually I'm used to linebackers kind of just standing in the middle of the field and falling backwards as they tackle guys after a 7-yard gain. And I'm just excited. And the cool thing is, not that I want to count any of these guys out, but if we can turn guys like Chris Barnes, who I don't think were overly impressive last year. They had a couple highlight reel plays, but not overly impressive. But Chris Barnes, Oren Burks, Ty Summers, if these guys start to look like superstars in this system, because we just kind of dumb it down for linebackers or whatever it is we're doing in this system. I mean, if we draft a guy, you go out and draft a real stud maybe next year. I don't know. We'll see how it plays out though. But I'm very excited. I've never been excited for linebackers the way I am right now, and just the way that they're playing, just the aggression of it. I always felt like our linebackers were so passive. They kind of just let things happen to them. And Joe Barry and this defense, they use their linebackers and they're just punishing people. It's fun to watch. George says, was that Funchess hamming the camera behind Devontae? No, that was MVS. MVS was hamming the camera behind Devontae when Kuhn was interviewing him. Only caught a glance. Yeah, that was pretty funny. Mitchell says, how'd you think Stokes looked? I thought he looked great. There were a couple plays. He didn't get a lot of snaps again, but I know there were at least one, maybe two snaps where a pass was caught, but it was all zone. So it's one of those things where I think it's right at that point when he's passing off, and so the safety or the linebacker is supposed to pick up, and it's right in that middle part. So it's hard to gauge for me anyways. Did he not carry that out far enough? Or did the linebacker or safety not bite up high enough? Or just, they just hit the right spot in the zone or whatever it is. I don't think it was necessarily that he just got burned. You know what I mean? He's passing him off. And, if he's not carrying that far enough down the field, that's something that he needs to learn. But, I mean, he had the one pass breakup. The one time it's just contested 50-50, he got in there and broke it up. So that was really good to see. I think he needed to get, his hand on a football just to kind of make that play in camp, in a preseason game, whatever. Kind of build up a little confidence again, because he's not getting a lot of opportunities. But it's also inspires a lot of confidence that they're pulling him so quickly, because the Packers are treating him as though he's a starting cornerback. And maybe it's partly because King is hurt, because if King is hurt and he gets hurt, we're in a lot of trouble. But, they're only giving him, you look at Amari Rodgers, right? He's a rookie. He needs opportunities. He's in there the entire game. You look at Stokes. He's a rookie. He needs snaps. Nope, sorry, you're sitting on the bench. Go out there and do like 5 and get off. So they're very protective of him for sure. Michael says, okay, back. Did you discuss the fact that Sternberger needs to be among the cut? I feel like this is Mr. Negative. You guys should hang out. If it's not, I'll get you his number. You guys should hang out. Sternberger needs to be among the cut. Horrible draft pick by Good. This is Mr. Nick. Come on now. Yes, it is. It has to be. Because that guy, all he wants to do is talk about Jordan Love being terrible and Sternberger being terrible. Sternberger had a touchdown today, so it's not the best day in the world to talk about him being terrible. I'll agree he's underwhelmed, but he's a third-round pick, and it's his third year, and he's had a lot of great reports coming out of camp, and he had a touchdown today. And I think he had a really big reception last week in the preseason as well, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, I'm positive he did. So he's showing improvement. I don't know. He's clearly not a boss. That's silly at this point. Is he going to really emerge as a star? I don't know. Probably not. But again, Tunyon was terrible in his first 2 years. The third year was his breakout year. This is Jace's third year. It's been nothing but positive reports. And again, even if he doesn't pan out, so what? Like one third-round pick doesn't pan out, we're going to cry about it? This is Mr. Negative, I swear. Michael, you made that name up. This isn't Michael. I forgot what round he was from, his third round, but even 7th was too high. Look, criticism is fine, but if you're going to be silly, then I'm just going to make fun of you, because you're being silly. How hot and bothered does our running back room get you? Very. And again, like I said, it's a little bit depressing, because I don't want to get rid of any of these guys. And I understand, look, we have all we need. And Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, and you got Kylan as sort of a backup to kind of just mix in once in a while. But I do like Dexter. I think he's underrated. I think he was the only running back that did anything in week 1 of the preseason. And now all of a sudden he's the only guy that I've seen that has any real promise as a returner. It's hard to get rid of the guy. And then, again, Patrick Taylor, I just love the way he runs the ball. I really do. Billy says, it's always interesting how people will see one great or one bad play and judge a player based on that one snap. Yeah, I mean I think it's just bias too. You know, I mean, I've been kind of anti-Sternberger, but you got to have the ability to say it hasn't been great, but we'll see what happens, right? You guys know I'm anti. I shouldn't say anti. I've been very negative on King. King had a good year in what was it, 2020 or 2019? Great, I'm excited, and I just said he had a good year, and that's it. Some people just really hate guys, and they dig in, and they can't let it go, and I feel like that's what's happening here with Michael and Sternberger, where there's just a hatred and an animosity toward a certain pick or a certain player, either because he's been terrible, which is fine, but that's in the past. You can't judge him going forward. If he's terrible again this year, then yeah, you look at. But even then, it's not really something to get angry about because most draft picks don't pan out. So what? So you move on. What are you going to do about it? I know I do it probably entirely too much on the podcast, but it's because of comments like this where I go back and go, okay, let's just pick a random team out of a hat. Let's look at the Chargers. Let's look at their third round pick. Let's see how he's doing. Oh, look, he's terrible. Shocker. If you go through and look at third round picks, I would bet 90% of them are not great football players. So if we have a third round pick that isn't great, what do you want to do? I mean, people throw that in my face, and I don't mean to pick on you, Michael. Mr. Negative, as I call him, because I don't want to use his name because he gets mad about it. But he's always hammering me on this because he thinks it's a big dig. Like this proves that Gutekunst is a joke. No, it doesn't at all. It just doesn't. It's not panning out. And again, in Sternberger's case, it hasn't been great, but it might be great. I don't know. We got to see. I mean, if it was up to these guys, Tunyon would be gone because he was terrible in his first 2 years, and he's a complete waste, and he's a complete joke, and he shouldn't have been here. And then we would have never had a year 3. Somebody else would have had a year 3. So there's no reason to be this angry about it. I'm not happy with his production up to this point. I'm optimistic about the reports we've heard, but even so, when you got DeGuara and you got Tunyon and you got Lewis, I don't know how many opportunities he's going to get, but let's give him a shot. Let's see how it goes. I don't know. I'm not super optimistic. I don't think he's going to be a great player, but maybe he will, maybe he won't. And if he's not, I really don't care that much. It doesn't bother me. Michael says, I happen to like the J Love pick, so not me being Mr. Neg. All right, fair enough, because he hates Jordan Love, so maybe it's just a different guy. But exact same demeanor about these things. It just doesn't bother me as much. If you have repeated terrible picks, like some of Ted Thompson's draft picks down the line, it just got to be to where it was upsetting because everybody was a miss, especially early round picks when you have a lot of potential to get stars. And granted, it was late first round picks, but even so, the fact that we had so many just not even contributors, I mean, guys that were just terrible in the first round, it got to the point where it's like, all right, criticism is necessary at this point. But I think Gutekunst, again, has done a great job. I think this entire draft class this year is panning out quite well. A lot of the guys from the past have panned out quite well. And to be honest, the Jay Sternberger reports are all positive. So I'm just not at a point where I'm criticizing. I'm assuming, just like everybody, he's eventually going to fall off and he's not going to be a great GM anymore. But so far, he's doing a great job, and there's nothing really that anybody's going to say that's going to make me think this guy's a bum, right? I don't know. All right, where are we? Lance says, Sternberger, I think that he's improving in the passing game, but it would be silly to use him in a big blocking role. Yeah, I mean, he's not that guy. He's the Jimmy Graham, right? He's the Robert Tunyon. Not that you'd never put him in line, but he's largely just going to line up in the slot and attack linebackers. And, we'll see. I mean, he's not going to be a star, but he can be a contributor, even in this past game with, what was it? It was one of these just short little passes, just watching him try. I mean, anytime somebody's coming at him, and when you're a tight end, you have an expectation. If a corner's coming at you, or even a linebacker, you got to give him a run for his money. He kind of seems to go down on first contact. He's a little clunky. He doesn't seem to be a great yard after the catch guy, but I don't know. Whatever. He is what he is. All right, where do we leave off? Goose says Beggleton had some good returns. Yeah, I kind of talked about that. He had a couple. I don't like the way he does his returns. Just the way he runs, it's like that ain't gonna pan out. He's too upright and just we'll see. I don't know. It was fine, but I don't think he's gonna, especially considering how hard it is to crack this wide receiver room. I don't think he's like so amazing that he's gonna make the team necessarily, but we'll see. Maybe he will. Goose says Goot has so many hits. If you think he's done poorly, you need meds. Yeah, if we're just gonna look at the Packers in a vacuum, he's probably had more misses than hits. But that's literally every team since the dawn of time. Every GM has a record of more misses than hits. And Michael, I'm not picking on you anymore at this point. I'm just saying generally there's certain people who are so laser focused on the Packers and they have no idea what's going on out there in the rest of the world. And so they look at a draft class, and let's say we draft 8 guys and 3 of them are really good football players. They say 4 guys failed. This guy's a bum. He's a terrible GM. No, that's a good year. 3 guys contributing out of 8 or whatever. That ain't bad. It's really not. It's solid. I mean, there are several teams this year, I guarantee you, who are maybe going to get 1. Some teams might get 0. They might get 0 guys contributing. I mean, we didn't when we drafted Jordan Love. How many guys in that draft class started? Not very many. We had the excuse that they're future picks, and obviously now we got A.J. Dillon and some of these guys starting to step up, but just it was not a very high contributing year. Let's see. Mr. Negative should just switch teams. Yeah, so I've talked to the actual Mr. Negative about that. He was actually annoying me a lot today because he only wanted to text me when things would go wrong. And I don't know. I know he does it sometimes just to get under my skin or whatever because he thinks it's funny, and it's easy to do, but sometimes it's like you just need to go root for a different team. And part of the reason I tell people to do that is for perspective, because they're going to go root for that team and they're going to be even more miserable because they're much worse and their GM is worse and their draft history or draft record is worse. Their free agency record is worse. Their coaching is worse. Their roster is worse. It's all worse. The Packers are like at the top of just about every category. And so it would be good for somebody to just for fun, like role play. Don't actually switch teams, but just for like a couple weeks, just like, I'm not a Packer fan. I'm a Chargers fan. I'm a Chargers fan. I'm a Chargers fan. And you just immerse yourself. Even a team that's supposedly fantastic in all these facets, the Bills, they've got so many holes. It's a joke. They have so many misses. It's silly. Free agency, silly. They do a great job though. It's just that most of the time they fail because that's what everybody does. It's perspective, man. That's all it is. It's got to have a different perspective. You don't have to. You can fan however you want to fan. I just don't think it's healthy to be so angry all the time. Billy says, saw so many great reports on Fields, and while watching it, I just didn't see anything amazing. Heck, Trubisky was the same game and outplayed him. So, yeah, I mean, the Fields hype is silly, and the thing that I really don't get about it is that he's hyped more than anybody else. He's hyped more than Trey Lance, Trevor Lawrence, and Zach Wilson. The 3 guys that got drafted ahead of him. They don't get as much hype. I want to go to my Twitter real quick because somebody highlighted this, and I thought it was funny. Jared, I think. So I couldn't hear everything. But he went on and he said, here's a couple things I heard. He said, I've heard them compare him to Mahomes, Vic, and Tyreek Hill, and that he is the most athletic guy on the field in the same game. So those are 5 different things that he heard the announcers say about Justin Fields. I heard the Pat Mahomes comparison. It was hilarious because I don't know if you remember this or if you saw this. Basically what happened on the play is he got tripped, he started falling, and he threw the ball away. And they compared him to Pat Mahomes. He was falling down, and he stopped himself from falling completely over and regained his balance and launched the ball out of the to the sideline. And he's Pat Mahomes for that. It's just so silly, and I agree. I thought he did fine, but there was never a throw. And you're right, Trubisky, I thought was better. I thought Kurt Benkert was better in terms of like some throws where you look at it and go, wow, that's a great throw. The thing with Justin Fields, the best plays he had were when things broke down and he just ran. And I'm sorry if I'm a Bears fan, and it's funny, the guy would have like 6 incompletions and then run for a first down, and the Bears fans lost it. They started cheering like, yeah, there's that 4.4 speed or whatever he runs. He's so fast. It's like, yeah, dude, that's cool. But if he can't quarterback, then that's not great. So if I'm a Bears fan, I'm not super excited. I mean, I'm a little bit because it's like, yeah, there's that cool little attribute that we really want to see. Kind of like when A.J. Dillon drags a guy for 3 yards, and it's like, you got to be able to run, but it's still kind of nice. But still, the plays that I remember seeing from him were when there's no pressure and the guy's wide open. Anytime there's pressure, I don't remember him completing hardly any passes. I'm sure there were one or two. But generally speaking, he's wide open and there's no pressure. There were a couple contested balls. I don't remember anybody catching any of them. And again, when there's pressure, I don't really remember him. I remember him escaping the pocket and running, and I remember him throwing the ball away, and I remember him throwing some passes that didn't get caught. But I don't remember really anything where it's like, again, comparing him to Pat Mahomes. Okay, show me the play where there's pressure in his face, and as he's falling, he throws the ball to a guy that's got a defender draped all over him, and he puts it right where only his guy can get it, and he catches it and reels it in. That's what Pat Mahomes does. Has he ever done that? No. He throws to wide open guys when he has 5 seconds to stand. Again, that was same thing as week 1. His one big play, and again, I was in and out, and I'm cooking, and I'm entertaining, and so I maybe there were a couple really good passes that I missed, but the one big play down the field that I saw was almost the exact same play as we saw last week, where, again, he's got so much time, and he's scrambling and scrambling and scrambling, and we're probably about 4.5 seconds into this play. He's 10 yards back. He fully plants his feet. There's nobody within 3, 4, 5 yards of him. He launches the ball down the field to a guy that's wide open. And it's like, 30-yard pass. Cool. That's one of the few 30-yard passes I can throw and complete. I'm not saying he doesn't have it in him, but I am saying we haven't seen it yet. Oh, we're drying out fast here, folks. Water would probably be better than coffee, but she's getting dry. Yeah, so I don't think we've really seen much other than his ability to escape the pocket and run for first downs. But one thing that we've learned is that attribute by itself does not make you a good quarterback. Lamar was not a good quarterback until he learned to actually throw the football. He's super dangerous with his legs, but same with Kaepernick and Michael Vick and Kyler and all these guys. They can all do that. I mean, half the league at this point has quarterbacks that can run. The differentiating factor between whether I'm actually scared of them or I'm just annoyed by them running for first downs is, can they throw the football? Can they be good quarterbacks? That's it. Let's see. Michael says, I think Goose the best GM in the league, but Sternberger sucks, and I don't want... Yeah, so a lot of what I was saying wasn't necessarily directed at you. It's just the negativity in general. But, again, the thing with Sternberger is he has sucked. We'll see what happens this year. Because and again, it's mostly just because it's been positive reports. If it's been all negative reports and he played like garbage, I'd probably just be like, yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't really want to cut him, but if he does, I don't really care. But again, it's been relatively positive, so we'll see. Lance says, what's annoying was immediately giving Sternberger 87. The cool thing about 87 anyways, and I know it is annoying because he doesn't deserve that number, but whatever, we'll let it go. My daughter, who is not super into football, but she's starting to kind of get into it because it's a party and, it's kind of cute because she wants to be a part of the fun and make dad excited because she's wearing Packer stuff. The one jersey she has is a Jordy Nelson jersey. So it's got 87 on it. She doesn't know who that is. Obviously, she's 4 years old. But so she's partying with us or whatever, and it was a touchdown, and she's jumping up and down doing high fives, and it was Jace. And so I said, Riley, look at your shirt. Look who got the touchdown. And she looked down at 87 and sees the guy with 87 get a touchdown. She was super excited. She thought that was amazing. Obviously, that was Jordy, but she doesn't know. She doesn't need to know. So that was kind of fun. So that was kind of nice, but otherwise I'm with you. He does not really deserve that. For that reason alone, I might agree with Michael. We should cut him just so that he can't wear that number. Lance says he didn't earn the number. He didn't earn the number. You're right. But I don't know if Stokes has earned 21 either, but, we'll just hope he grows into it. Ian says seeing 80 on Crawford was weird. Just kept seeing a thick Donald Driver. I hadn't thought of that, but that is weird. Goose says, could the Packers get compensation for LP if they decide to move on from him? Man, why you got to make me look stupid on my own thing? Who is LP? Lucas Patrick. Yeah, so somebody had alluded to that on Twitter that there's two guys that we might be able to get some compensation for, Devin Funchess and Lucas Patrick. I don't think it'd be very much. It might just be sort of like a Josh Jackson kind of trade where maybe we can just swap offensive linemen or swap somebody. Otherwise, I would guess it's a real late pick, like seventh, kind of a deal. But I do think that those are the two guys that we might be looking to move that have some level of value, I guess, would be my thought. Justin just has the flashier plays. I guess that's why. Yeah, it's just weird. And I mean, the Bears are not a super popular team. I could see if it was a real exciting team. Even like it's so weird it's not the Jaguars because they got the flashy new fancy coach. It's a fun Florida team. I know it's been a trash franchise, but so is the Bears. And then this is one of the most touted quarterback prospects since what? Andrew Luck? At least. And he's just not getting that level of hype. And it's just weird because Justin Fields didn't get that kind. I don't know if it's just because overcompensation because so many people thought he was disrespected. I remember in the draft process that people thought that he was falling unfairly, whether it's because of the color of his skin or whatever the case may be. I don't know. But so now we got to like overhype him and be like, he's so good. I knew it. Like I know JJ does it, not for that reason, but because he just thinks he's a lot better. And it's such a weird thing and I don't understand it. Why is he so hyped more than anybody else? Way more than any other quarterback, way more than Mac Jones, who's been by far the best rookie so far, far more than, again, Trevor, Trey Lance. Again, Trey Lance was a ton of great reports about Trey Lance. Super exciting. I mean, as far as mobility, probably a better quarterback than Justin Fields. I mean, he's kind of similar to a Colin Kaepernick or kind of like I don't want to say Lamar Jackson necessarily because he's not quite that athletic, but that kind of a guy is. But again, nobody cares as much as Justin Fields, and so and again, it's not just the excitement; it's how silly we're being about it. Again, going back to these comments, Pat Mahomes because he fell down and threw it out of bounds. Michael Vick, give me a break. He's nowhere near as dynamic with his legs, and he doesn't have a cannon for an arm like Vick does. The only other guy that looks like Michael Vick is Lamar Jackson. And he looks very similar with the cannon and the legs. And then Tyreek Hill, I don't even know what you could possibly be talking about calling him Tyreek Hill. It's just stupid. It's just so unnecessary. 1265 also says, it also doesn't help that Chicago hasn't seen great quarterback play. So I get it from Bears fans' perspective. I don't get it from the media perspective. I don't. And again, that also would translate over to the Jaguars, who have not had good quarterbacks and who also have a much better quarterback behind center. So from the fan standpoint, I kind of get it. I think they're being a little silly, and I think they're setting themselves up for failure. And it's actually uncharacteristic of Bears fans because Bear fans actually do hold a really high standard of expectation. So it's sort of uncharacteristic for them. They've had good players that they trash because it's just not good enough. It's not up to our standard. And this guy's coming out, and I don't think he's played up to the standard. I don't think he's been good enough. Not that he's been terrible, but because of all the hype, you would expect him to come out and make some Pat Mahomes type plays or whatever, and it just hasn't been there. But they're just like, no, he's great. He looks perfect. This is exactly what I want. And I'm like, well, that's great because it's exactly what I want too, because this is not scaring me at all. So I guess we're all happy. There's no reason for Bears and Packer fans to fight. I mean, Packer fans are looking at him going, he doesn't really scare me, and Bear fans are looking at him going, this is great. The guy's elite. I guess we'll just shake hands on it and say we're both satisfied. I don't know what else to say. Goose says, don't forget the Bears' defense looked terrible. They did. That's very true. Lance says, good dad move. Thanks. I try. I'm just glad that they're starting to come around. Like my oldest daughter she's not into it, but she's still, like, did they win? And oh, that stinks. She used to be like, I'm rooting for the Bears because you hate the Bears, and I just feel like bothering you. So we're turning that corner where at least everybody's on the same page. And now I got 2 kids that are super into it, and I got a baby, soon to be 1 year old. If I can get her into it. Plus, the cool thing is now that we got a house and I hosted a party, call them Packer parties, which is just when family comes. By the way, that's probably the biggest reason I'm a massive Packer fan is Packer parties. It's when you get family together and you're cooking out and you got the chip dip and the burgers and your aunts and your uncles and everybody's there. It's just fun. It's a fun atmosphere. It's not just dad screaming at the TV and being angry all the time. It's so we need more of that. We need Packer parties. That's when the kids are going to get into the Packers. So excited about that. Very excited. Excited to host. Excited to do fun things. Michael says, name 5 cuts you want to see. Any player someone says they want cut, it seems you fight to keep them. Name 5 you want gone. All right. Michael wants to fight today. All right, let's see. Not Jace, because I think that's, again, he's not far enough down the list. So we can go down the list of tight ends, Crawford, Daphne and Kaufusi. And I know Daphne, I don't want Daphne cut, but before Jace, yes. So 5 is easy. Hazelton, Winfrey, Beggleton, Blair, Malik Taylor, Equinemius, Dennis Kelly, Coy Cronk, Jacob Capra, maybe Cole Van Lanen. I don't know. He hasn't looked super great. Ben Braden has been terrible. Lucas Patrick probably can pack his bags at this point. Jake Hansen will probably keep just because we don't have a lot of centers, but it doesn't look super great. Again, Kaufusi, we just have too many tight ends. Crawford for sure is gone. Dolegala is going to go. Josh Avery, Carlo Kemp. Let's see, Ray Wilborn. Let's see, Dejon Harris can go. Delonte Scott can go. Some of these other guys got to go, but you only said 5, and so I don't have to make any real tough decisions. I'll just go kind of skim off the top. I listed probably 10. J.J. Molson, the kicker, can go. Yeah, I think that works. Stepniak already retired, so we don't have to worry about that. So there you go. There's 5-ish. If Love does play next week, do you think it would be more of a challenge than it was versus Houston? Yes, I do. I think Buffalo annihilated the Bears, not just because the Bears are terrible, but because Buffalo's a good team. I think their depth is going to be also quite talented. I'm kind of hoping, and this is somewhat unfair, but I'm kind of hoping that they don't play a lot of starters and that it's kind of like week 4. Usually that's when you rest all of your starters, so we're not going to be doing that. And although it seems a little bit silly because it's like, why don't you want your quarterback to go up against the best? The problem is we're sitting all our starters. So if we sit all our starters and they're playing their starters, it's not just Jordan Love versus their starters. He has an unfair disadvantage with his offensive line, the run game, his receivers aren't getting open, the whole thing. So if we're doing all backups with Jordan Love, then they should have all backups. So at the very least, I hope they sit a lot of their guys so it's at least a little bit more of an even playing field. But I think it's going to be tough. They've got some good football players. But I'm at least, you said Houston, so I'm at least hopeful it would be better than Houston, where they had most of their starters going, because that was just an absolute annihilation. So although I do think Buffalo probably has better players, I hope for a better performance against the Buffalo Bills than what we saw against Houston. Because, again, Love needs to be able to operate a little bit to be able to evaluate him. And even though I thought he did a great job with nothing to work with, which is, again, the guy gets no love. Justin Fields, clean pocket, guy's wide open, throws a pass, he's Pat Mahomes. Jordan Love has no time, no running game, and none of his guys are open, completes as many or more passes than Justin Fields, at least on a percentage basis. Nobody cares, but whatever. It doesn't matter. The media doesn't decide who's better. It's just who's better is who's better. And they can keep pumping up guys that aren't very good and ignoring guys that are good. But at the end of the day, we'll see what happens. Scott says, hi, Scott. Wow, catching up on the game and just saw TJ Slayton sack and he can move, LOL. He can, man. He absolutely can. For his size, he can move. And very, very good to see it because he's already shown what he can do against the run. And so putting that little cherry on top, again, I'm going to stand by the fact that isn't something we should expect. He's never going to be a 10-sack guy. If he does, we have an absolute steal of the century, because Kenny Clark at this point isn't even a 10-sack guy. But it shouldn't be an expectation. But yeah, I mean, just the fact that he's showing, hey, I can do that too, right? That's pretty fantastic. What do we got here? We're all caught up. Oh, Michael's back. He's got another comment. I want to go back here because we're kind of getting caught up, so we'll go through some of the stats. He says, well, I'm proud of you for naming one cut that will be somewhat of a shock to some. I agree Patrick needs to go. Glad we agree on that. All right. Kind of ripping through. Feel free to keep bringing in some... it's already 9:30, but we'll rip through the stats. If there's no other questions, I'm going to go to bed. Do the podcast tomorrow. I'm sucking down coffee, so we'll see how easy it is to go to bed. Patrick Taylor, 8 carries, 48 yards, 6-yard average. Again, Patrick Taylor, man, he hit that. He just goes flying. And granted, he had some pretty big holes to run through. He didn't get touched for quite a while. That's one of the stats that'll be interesting to look at, is when first contact came around. But even so, I mean, he's breaking any arm tackles. He's got such good burst and just some power when that contact finally comes. Kylan Hill, 7 carries, 29 yards, 1 touchdown, 4.1 yard average. A lot of what's cool about Kylan Hill is he's sort of like Aaron Jones light. And I don't want to overreact and be like, he's the next Aaron Jones, because I'm not saying that. But just a lot of the stuff that he does that you like, it's like, man, especially Aaron Jones year one. I remember, the first thing I remember about Aaron Jones is I was down on him because it seemed like every run he had was to the outside. And it's like, all right, well, that's the one thing he can do, but it's not all that impressive. Kylan Hill does a lot of damage to the outside, and it's funny because it doesn't seem like he's going to get there, right? He's not super blazing fast, but he gets to the outside, he gets to the edge, and he turns the corner, and he gets a decent run out of it. It doesn't seem like it's anything, but that was 7 yards. It's like, well, friggin' A, that's fantastic. But then also there's some plays where it doesn't look like there's anything there, and he just kind of makes something out of nothing, right? He finds the crease, and he gets through it, and he gets some yards, and he just seems to create things that aren't there. I don't see anything super special with him as far as anything obvious, like, again, Patrick Taylor, the burst and the power, Dexter Williams, the speed, A.J. Dillon, the just brute force. There's nothing about Kylan where you look at it and go, oh, that was amazing, but he's just a natural running back, and it just seems simple to him, and he just creates and finds things that are there. A.J. Dillon, 4 carries, 28 yards, 7-yard average. He was a monster in this game. Love to see it. Kurt Benkert, 4 carries, 6 yards, 1.5 average. Cut him. Amari Rogers, that was a joke. 1 carry, 2 yards. Amari, not seeing a ton from Amari yet, but again, I think they're just easing him in a little bit. That's kind of an excuse, but again, a lot of the stuff that they're going to have him do with motion and those kinds of things, they're not really breaking out with Kurt Benkert. So you get an Aaron Rodgers under center, you might see a little bit more of that. But as of right now, basically he's just a bubble screen, yard after the catch guy. And that's cool, and it's fun. But if he's going to contribute, he's going to have to do more than that. It was nice to see that one nice reception, I believe, for a first down. So got to slowly start breaking him into that stuff. The nice thing is, again, with all the depth that they have, we don't have to get a lot of production out of him. If he's just a gadget guy, if he's just out there doing, if he's just a one-trick pony, we'll work with that for now. At some point, he's going to have to step up and be more. But for now, we can live with that so long as he continues to learn and grow. And again, we got Randall Cobb sitting there that can teach him, so that's kind of cool. Lance says, how many running backs do you think we keep? So we kind of went through this. And then 12 says, how many wide receivers? Probably 3 running backs, maybe 4, but probably 3. And then how many wide receivers? Or do you think we keep 7 wide receivers? I would say 6. 7 seems unnecessarily excessive, but who knows? And then Michael says, yes, we're going to keep Tay, Lazard, MVS, Cobb, Funchess, Amari, and Malik Taylor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Receiving, Malik Taylor, 4 receptions, 66 yards on 5 targets. Amari Rogers, 4 receptions, 31 yards on 5 targets. Reggie Begelton, 2 receptions, 15 yards. A.J. Dillon, 2 receptions, 12 yards. Kylan, 2 receptions, 11 yards. Patrick Taylor, 1 reception for 7 yards. Jace, 2 receptions, 5 yards and a touchdown. Dexter Williams, 1 target, 0 receptions, 0 yards. Fumbles, Kurt Benkert lost 1. Patrick Taylor lost 1. 1 pass deflection in the game. That was Eric Stokes. You love to see it. Defensively, tackles Henry Black and Innis Gaines. So the safeties, Innis Gaines, again, I thought had a decent day. Nothing super stood out, but he's flying in and just smoking people. So that's pretty fantastic. Henry Black also had 4 tackles. Nobody had like a massive amount, but the 2 safeties did. Isaiah McDuffie with 4. Again, I caught him on 2 different plays. One was special teams and one was on defense, where I noticed he made a big play and kind of looked up, who's that number? I'm like, oh yeah, that's McDuffie. I like McDuffie a lot. We haven't seen a ton from him. I doubt he's going to get a ton of playing time, if any, this year. But I really liked him in college. So he's a fun guy. He really flies around, very much like all the other guys that we have. It's you can see why the Packers would have picked them up. As far as interesting stats, let's see, sacks, we had just the one, and it was TJ Slayton, so that's very cool. Tackles for a loss, TJ Slayton, obviously. Ray Wilborn, Tipa Galea, and looks like that's it. Kicking, Mason Crosby, no field goals. J.K. Scott, 4 punts, 40.8 average, 1 inside the 20. His longest was 51 yards. Kickoff returns, we had Dexter Williams, 2 returns, 26.5 average, 32 was his longest. 26.5 average is fantastic for kick returns. Kylan Hill, 1 for 12 yards. Punt return, Reggie Begelton, 2 for 17.5 yards. His longest was 28. So averaging 8.5-ish per return, which is not bad. Amari Rogers, 1 for -1 yards. And I don't see any other comments. So I think we're going to wrap it up for the day. Thank you again to Lance for the $1 super chat. Really do greatly appreciate that. And again, if you guys just wouldn't mind tomorrow checking out the Packernet podcast, we'll go a little bit more in depth on all this stuff. And again, I wanted to do this a little bit more regularly with the going live stuff, but it's just finding the time for it. Obviously, I can't stay up until 9:30 every night, especially when I'm doing the podcast. But